Good evening, church. Been a long day for some of you. Been in a bus, traveling all day. But it's been a really good weekend, hasn't it? We had a sermon on not being friends of the world this morning. And I want to carry on with that theme and close it up. This is February, and during February we talked about moving out of the world where Adam and Eve had left us and going back to where Christ wants us to be. And those of you who were on the retreat, you understand exactly what it means to be where Christ wants you to be. The singing was unbelievable. I'll never forget the times that I've been at CYC. I was just thinking today, Chris told Bill, now that you got the big bus, I was on there with you all. I was really enjoying it. You know, when you're in the world, you see so many things that are shocking. I'm still trying to make sense of the Guin robber. Have you all figured out what's up with the Guin robber? I don't know what his motive is. I can't understand why they've not caught him. I think maybe it's because he's got a disguise. Maybe he's got a wig and a beard and a mustache that he puts on and nobody recognizes him like that. In the meantime, he's trying to grow this hair like crazy so that he can take it off. But you know, the world gets into so many things that we just can't understand. In James chapter 4, I was listening to James chapter 4 and 5 this morning, just part of my daily readings. And I came across this verse in verse 4, and I'll read up leading up to it. And really, verses 8 to 10, the whole of James 4 is just incredible. But here the first few verses says, "What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you?" Verse 8 to 10 will tell you instead, draw close to God. And here in verse 2 it says, you desire and do not have, so you murder. You covet and you cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and you do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. Then listen to this, verse 4. And I want you to imagine the church being the bride of Christ. I want you to imagine that we're in a marital relationship with Christ, just like a husband and a wife is. How would you feel if one of either was unfaithful to the other? How would that affect you? And how must that affect Christ? So it says here in verse 4, you adulterous people, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? All it takes for us to break covenant with God is to be friends with the world. Doesn't take much, does it? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. And so when you look at what does this imply to be a friend of the world, it implies four things. Firstly, it implies that you love the world. You associate, you conform, and you assimilate to the comforts and the pleasures and the happiness of the world. And you can take each one of those and you can say, which one pops at you? Which one really gets you? Is it that you love the world because you don't desire, you don't allow God to draw you close to Him, or you don't draw close to God? Do you associate with the world? You know how easy it is to get drawn into the world? Think about all the things that you hear on TV right now. I mean, I'm hearing unbelievable things. I'm hearing people called con artists, and I'm hearing that Bernie Sanders really wasn't going to be it. He was just set up. And there's so many of these things. You know, Hillary was always going to take it, and it's just there, and it's insightful. It's angry. It gets you to. It wants to pull you in. It wants you to be part of the conversation. Well, don't get part of the conversation. You know, God deserves our breath. He deserves the words that come out of our mouths. And so then when we associate with the world, we start to conform to the world. We look like the world. When you left Gatlinburg this morning, what was that traffic like? Pretty amazing, right? And was people impatient with each other? You see? And most of that, about 90%, was Church of Christ, wasn't it? So really we shouldn't. We should have traffic jams in situations like that. Now you go first. No, you go first. No, I'll wait. You go first, you know. That's how it should be. We shouldn't conform to the world. We should be so different. And you know, we really are. We are different. People need to see that in everything that you think, say, or do. And then we assimilate into the world by seeking its standards of comfort and happiness. What makes you happy, what makes you content, shouldn't be what makes the world happy or content. I've learned a long time ago, in fact it was in 1980 in an economics class in the University of the Orange Free State, that wants are unlimited. It said the basic law of economics, wants are unlimited. In other words, you'll never satisfy. You'll never reach a time where you say, I've had enough. You'll just learn to expand your appetite. I introduced a very sad topic this week. It was something that was on my mind a lot. There's a professor in our area that teaches at Northern Kentucky, Professor Boltz. And she's incredible when it comes to this. She's FBI trained. And I tried to get a map to show you what this looks like, and this map is about a year or two old. This was on News Channel 5, I think it was January of 2014. And that is where human trafficking people are targeting for victims. I can't tell you everything. I gave you an article that I wrote for this, but even in that article, I can't mention everything that is in there. I didn't mention everything that I heard, and definitely not in this audience could I tell you all the things that I heard. One of the things that I did here is that the average age of somebody to be caught into this lifestyle is 11 years old. And that really shook me. And then the other thing that really got me is the number 1 and number 3 people that are making use of these things are number 1, the lawyers, and number 3, the police. So how are we going to fix this if that's the case? And then another thing that really got me was that if a child between the ages of 9 and 14, which is the normal range, runs away from home. Is that easy for a child to be upset with parents? You know, I can remember packing my suitcase when I was 5. My mother was probably watching me. But in this day and age, if your child runs away from home in a city like this, the I-75 is one of the major corridors for this. Within an hour and a half, they are caught by someone that is trafficking. Within an hour and a half. That's on the outside. In California, it's a little bit faster. In Vegas, it's a little bit faster. Here, it's about an hour and a half. They know exactly where to go. If your child had to run away, do you know where your child would go? They know. And you can go to the bus depots like in downtown Cincinnati, and you can see them stop every now and then. A guy dressed really nice will stop there, and he will go into the bus terminal, he'll do his rounds, and then he'll get back into his nice car, and then he'll drive off. It's happening all the time. And every 3 to 4 days, these children get moved. So they don't really know what state they're in. This is what friendship with the world has done for America. We started this thing through Hollywood in the 1940s, 50s, probably as early as the 1920s. And we thought this is the end thing. You know, we've got to be modern. And in the 1960s, if you weren't with it, there was something wrong with you. And that's where all the postmodernistic thinking evolved from, to where there's no right or wrong. But one of the things that really got me is that one right down at the bottom there, that's Florence. That's one of the main pickup points. Right now, and this is 2 years old, right now the whole 275 is a ring. And anywhere on the 275, your children can get picked up. Craigslist is gone. There's another thing that I'd rather not mention that's taken its place. And so this is a very big problem. We can't afford to be friends with the world. We're going to get hurt if we're friends with the world. There's nothing for us. There's nothing for us. That's absolutely disgusting. There's nothing for us in the world. And so there are consequences. And turn, if you would, to James chapter 5 to look at the consequences. First of all, we see there is the coming judgment, the coming of judgment in chapter 5, verse 1. Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Definitely. People who are in this world, people that are happy and content in this world, there is a terrible day coming for them. Verses 2 and 3 talks about the commencement of this judgment. He says, and this really struck me when I was listening to it. If we invest everything into this world, instead of living frugally, and when I say frugally, I give the wrong idea. Minimalistically, I give the wrong idea. Let me put it to you this way. We need to live contently in this world. Does that make sense? We need to be content with whatever circumstance we find ourselves. He says this, if you're not, James chapter 5, verse 2, your riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Back in those days, every family would try to have one set of clothes that they keep that's really nice for those special occasions. And so then they would go to the closet and they would get out this special garment, and guess what? It's moth-eaten. You know, you've been thinking about this beautiful set of clothes and it's not there. Verse 3 says, your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure in the last days. It's sad, right? The treasure that you've laid up in the sad day, in the last day, if you're friends of the world, will actually be evidence used against you. Isn't that sad? You know when we're going to figure this out? When are we really going to figure this out? One split second after we breathe our last breath in this world, we will know what all of this stuff was for. And we'll know how serious Jesus was and why he spoke about this so much. And then we have the causes of judgment. We have the injustice, we have the luxury, and we have the violence. These are the causes of judgment. Verse 4, behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you. And the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. Secondly, listen to the luxuries. Verse 5, you have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. I suppose Jesus understands, he wants us to understand, this is a day of slaughter. This is a very serious time. We cannot afford to veer into luxury. And then look at the violence that is in this world, and we know about this all around us. James 5 verse 6, you have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you. Eventually, if you live a life that you shouldn't be living, your sin will find you out. And how do we know that? Well, a man by the name of Josh Hamilton was in a Shell gas station recently. And he's from Owensboro, Kentucky. And he had something in his pocket. Nobody knew what was there. And guess what happened? It exploded. And I thought, man, I've seen everything, you know. Liar, liar, your pants is on fire. Now it's don't smoke. You know, your pants will catch on fire. It's just amazing, folks. And you see this, and we see it, right? And you say, where do we even start with all this stuff that we're seeing? And it's becoming such that if you flip the channels on your TV, even normal television, right? Normal stuff. I said to Deween, this is a PG. I couldn't believe a PG. It's just unbelievable. Everywhere, it's everywhere, and you don't know what to do. We cannot afford to be friends of the world. We've got to draw a line in the sand. We've got to make a decision, folks. And this is not a decision the church makes. This is a decision every one of you makes on your own. There is no such thing as a church that's overbearing and forces their will down on people. That's not what it is. It's you in your homes. The elders can't give an answer for that. They cannot be everywhere. They cannot know what we are doing when they're not around. But folks, the Lord is there, and He's always there, and He's always watching. And so as we move in February away from where Adam and Eve left us, and as we come into this beautiful kingdom that Jesus has left us in, we know we're in the world, but we know we're not of the world. And we make that commitment again today during this invitation song. We let the world know we're here because we love the Lord. If you are subject to the gospel invitation, if you want to be baptized or you want to rededicate your life, please do so by coming forward right now as together we stand and sing.